Now, over the weekend, Nigerians were caught off guard by a vital report alleging a potential coup plot. The story published by Sahara reporters claimed that the Guards Brigade had been placed on high alert, sparking fears of political instability. In response, the Defense Headquarters swiftly debunked the claims, calling them false, unfounded, and dangerous. Now, according to the military, there is no coup plot, only a routine investigation involving 16 officers for alleged misconduct. The Defense Headquarters has also threatened legal action against those spreading what it called subversive misinformation. Now, still, the incident has triggered deeper questions about the current political mood in Nigeria and whether it reflects a growing disconnect between government and citizens, especially young people. Now, this is all happening at a time when several African countries from Niger to Gabon have experienced military takeovers, often driven by frustrations over governance failures. So today we're asking, what does this so-called coup plot saga reveal about the state of democracy in Nigeria and across Africa? To help us unpack these developments is Dr. Ibrahim Modibbo, a public affairs commentator, veteran journalist, first political editor at Daily Trust newspaper, co-founder of Newswatch magazine, and chairman of the Verbatim Media Group. Dr. Modibbo, thank you for joining us this morning.
Thank you.
You're highly welcome. So let's dive right in. So to start, how do you interpret the recent coup plot allegations? Do they reflect, the genuine threat to democracy or political overreactions?
Thank you, Maimuna. I'm so happy to come back home because we started the Trust Media, as you've narrated. I was on the political desk as the first editor of Daily Trust. And it has been a worthwhile experience. Very fantastic human beings I met, highly professional like Malan Kabiru Yusuf, and others all. They were wonderful.
Amazing.
I'm happy to be here. Now, going back to the issue at stake, in Hausa, they used to say, Idamba Rami. Rami. That is to say, if there's no hole or a big ditch, why are you talking about the ditch? You see, in the contemporary society, there is no how, Madam Memuna, you find, if there's a smoke, it doesn't just come out like that without fire. So to me, there could be some elements of truth in the fact that there are maybe attempts. It may not necessarily be a coup, it could be a coup scare, but it has been nipped in the bud. That is to suggest that things are not working well in the country. Whether we like it or not, Nigerians are hungry and Nigerians are angry because of some of the fundamental flaws of the government in power. Under globalization and multiculturalism such as ours, we are under no illusion as to the fact that Nigerians have been challenged by a myriad of political issues that need to be thrashed out. And these issues range from poverty index, unemployment, no job opportunities, no food on the table, people are suffering. There's problem of fuel scarcity. Well, not scarcity per se, but the monumental increase in terms of, the fuel in the pump prices. Look at even the issue that has to do with taxes. The poor man is being taxed and is being told, to tighten his belt. And now his waist is almost cutting because of tightening of belts, while those in the helm of affairs of governance are busy gallivanting all over the world in private jets and what have you. Memuna, I was so surprised one day I was at the airport, and when I saw some of these governors whose these monies, accruals that come from the subsidy removal was given to them, all of them, you will never see a governor enter this public jet or public plane. They're all on charter. How does that affect the economy? How does that affect the poor man? Even after receiving some of these monies, stupendous amount of money that goes to the states, what do they do with it? Some people just feel that they should do flyovers as a mark of development, even in places where there's no water. And even in places where the number of cars in the city is not maybe up to 1,000. You see flyovers to tell you that, look, they are in a hurry to catch up with the dominant structures of some of the places, you know, with high density, like Lagos, Abuja, and what have you. If you look at the unnecessary spendings, that has to do, first and foremost, with the issue of the president buying jets in the midst of this catastrophic economic conundrum that Nigeria is into, painting or building of the vice president's official residence, of which up to now he didn't even enter after completion, 27 billion. Look at even the issue of the International Conference Center, where 36 billion has been spent on renovation. Maybe just putting paint, changing the ACs. This is something that could crop up a new national international conference center. Meanwhile, how much was that center built by President Babangida? How much did it cost? But just when you paid, and buying of yachts, all of these things snowball into Nigerians not being comfortable. Nigerians are suffering. I can tell you this. I was a member of the Presidential Campaign Council for the Tinubu Shetima Presidential Campaign Council. I really campaigned. Why did I do that? Because of the antecedents of the president when I saw he was in Lagos. I thought there could be a change where we'll have a better Nigeria, a Nigeria that could develop at a faster pace with other this in the world, and also in Nigeria where the El Dorado will finally land, where we'll have milk and honey, where we'll have the goodies of life, where people will have, you know, education. Look at the issue of education. Look at the issue of health. It's so sympathetic that today our education has fallen flat. A university graduate doesn't know the difference between formal and informal letter. He can't even write a good letter. You see, it is a sad commentary in the history of this country. The trajectory, Madam Mumuna, of all these issues are what is making people become agitated. So if I see that there is something that the military are thinking about, to me, I strongly believe that there could be no coup. Maybe people are just anxiety because they know that if they see, gathering of 15, 16 military officers, they will just think, you know, it's a coup scare. And maybe they will even report it to the presidency so that the president will say that they are working. But as far as I'm concerned, I don't think there's anything like coup. The only coup that will come in Nigeria is through the democratic process. 2027, okay. We'll go to elections and we'll vote a government that we feel will do the needful to Nigerians. All right,
Dr. Modibbo, let's look at, the report from Sahara reporters. Is it really, up to standard, and did it meet the standard of, responsible journalism?
You see, fortunately, I did my PhD thesis on the challenges of the print media in sensitive conflict reporting in Nigeria. Now I examine some newspapers, including Daily Trust, where it's part of my, one of the most important and fundamental papers that I've taken as a guide. Now, to me, the issue of responsible journalism comes with a lot of challenges. First and foremost, as a journalist, you have to be guided by the social responsibility theory of the press. This is something that has been propounded since 1940s, where it presupposes that we are going to be responsible to the public by telling them the truth. In trying to bring up a report, fundamental question has to be raised. First and foremost is it the truth? Have you been able to break the barriers in trying to look at both sides? Have you been fair? Have you been thorough? Have you been able to look at a lot of indices that has to do with some of the nuances of the media that could propel your stories to give you a credible information. I'll tell you that if you look at, what is the name again of Sahara Reporters? Sahara Reporter worldwide is one of the leading social media channels that has a reputation. Whether anybody likes it or not, there are a lot of times that they tell the truth about issues. That is not to say they are perfect. There could be pitfalls here and there, but I know they are guided by the nuances of the media. That is to say, they are trying to break even by telling the media or the Nigerian people the truth about what is happening. Whether it is true or not, now the military is saying that there's no coup. I agree. If there's no coup, the 16 people that they caught, what were their offenses? Can they tell Nigerians the truth about what their offenses were? So you see, the Sahara Reporters became a trigger because they got the information, maybe from some sources, but they got a trigger. They made the military, stand on a kind of, on a trigger to make it respond to these issues. Otherwise, if Sahara didn't report this, I am sure that the Nigerian military will not even talk about it. Maybe they'll just do everything in silence and everything will go into normal. But the Sahara Reporters are trying to tell Nigerians what is happening on the ground. Why didn't Sahara Reporters, as far as January, talk of these military coup plotters? Why didn't you talk of it last year? Why are they talking about it today? So you have to ask some fundamental questions. And these questions presupposes that there is a kind of trajectory to the issues that has to do with the military, whether they're contented or not, because a lot of these young officers, let me tell you, there is one thing when we were in school, we learned about military coups, the contagious syndrome, where military officers go on courses in India, in London and all that, of almost the same rank. When you hear one of your friends that you met at the course from Gabon or Togo, this has become head of state. So because of that contagious syndrome, you've been able to establish friendship. You have the anxiety of also trying to toe the line. But the military, as it is today in Nigeria, they have been able to allow democracy to prevail despite its up and downs. We've been tumbling, fumbling, and also they've allowed, the democracy to prevail. And I have to commend them for that. So if we look at some of these things, out of every situation, one in Hausa will say, Mutum baya chika goma. That is, people cannot be completely perfect. There might be some issues that have to do with these problems. But then the military have to sweep it under the table so as not to arouse tension. Because if you look at things have been moving from the sublime to the ridiculous, where mediocrity and equity rules in this country.
Dr. Modibbo, the military has hinted at legal action, against the platform, which is Sahara Reporters. Now, in your view, where is the line between national security and press freedom?
You see, this is a very important question. You see, we have to be guided by the tenets of our professional calling. That is to say, I always refer to social responsibility theory, of which is part of my project. And it presupposes that you have to be responsible as a journalist to feed people with facts based on credible information, based on thoroughness, based on being able to put together your stories from both sides without taking sides. And also, if possible, you have to look at setting of an agenda. Now, have they been able to do this? The Sahara Reporters have been breaking news. And a lot of them are becoming true. If you look at some of this thing, the Sahara Reporter have some level of credibility. But, as I've said, they could not be perfect. They might err. The issue of national security is very important and very fundamental. That is why insensitive conflict reporting, of which my project in my PhD level, I have made a lot of recommendations. Part and parcel of it is we have to be socially responsible to the people. Let us not look at, like if there's outbreak of war based on religious destiny. If you go to the field, as a reporter, be guided by that social responsibility theory. Is it the truth? Are you, is there balance in terms of your story? Get both sides? Is it thorough? Have you been able to make conclusive research based on your findings, based on facts? You don't go to a place where there's religious outbreak and you say, they've killed 50 Christians, they've killed 150 Muslims. It will inflame passion. So you have to be guided by reason as to how you write your stories so that it doesn't bring national crisis. So sensitive conflict reporting, don't report on anything that is very sensitive that could inflame passion within the country that could lead to further spread of violence. So, answering your question, if the military, as he says, I'm sure they might not even go to court because they know that the Sahara reporters, they are a dangerous set of journalists in that group. They might have some of their facts. So even if they go to court, the Sahara reporter, you know, to deal with the journalist is not easy. He might have his facts. And as the military have rightly stated, they've stated that now they've arrested about 16 people. Arresting 16 people for what? Tell Nigerians what they have done. Not on just miscellaneous or general perception that these people have. What did they say is the reason? You think you just read in your this thing?
Yes. Okay. So they stated that they were, arrested for misconduct.
Very good.
Yeah.
What is the misconduct? They should tell Nigerians. Don't just generalize it. If it is alleged coup, tell Nigerians that you'll be able to nip it in the bud. There's nothing bad in it. You have arousing the consciousness of Nigerians as to what is happening. But under the national security architecture, we should allow democracy to prevail. Because the worst form of democracy is better than the best form of military dictatorship or jackboot democracy. Because these military boys, whom we call in those days in school, khaki boys, even if you lock them in a barrack, they can jump the fence.
So do you think that, media organizations should be punished for reporting what turns out to be, false, even if the public has a right to know about it?
What I would have loved the military to do is to seek for retraction. Let them, if it is not true, retract and apologize. That's all. But if you say you are continuing, because I know Sahara reporters very well, this is a group of hardcore reporters that will not apologize, nor will they, will they pander to the wings and caprices of the military in trying to threaten it. They cannot threaten them. So threat will not work. Going to court is something that I'm familiar with. So if you go to court, how many years are you going to take? So to me, as far as I'm concerned, the best thing is, part of my also recommendation is that there's need for constant training of journalists. Training and retraining of journalists by way of equipping them with the mental capacity to face the challenges of the job. You see, these days now, the social media is so unfortunate, Memuna, that we're in a country that has not been guided by reason, where we have everybody that could be able to get a handset or recorder have become a blogger without having, the real training of journalism, the real mechanism that equips you to be a good journalist that could be able to write. You can see, they will just carry, some of them will just carry stories from Tanzania or maybe Rwanda, genocide. They come and place it in Nigeria. You see, it's happening here.
Dr. Modibbo, let's zoom out a little. This scare did not, happen in isolation. Now, across Africa, we have Niger, Mali, Burkina Faso, Gabon. We've seen a wave of military takeovers. Now, what, in your view, are the deeper issues fueling this rise in coups, and how might they be resonating in Nigeria?
You see, this is the danger that I told you about contagious syndrome within the military. If they go to courses, they've seen their mates toppling government, torpedoing government, democratic structures. They feel they could do it too. So that is a danger. And therefore, The only thing that will safeguard our democracy is good governance. If you have a country that has been able to pluck the low-hanging fruits in terms of looking at the welfare of the people, taking care of education structures, giving out social responsibilities, especially, bringing infrastructure, also looking at the economy, widening the spectrum of agriculture, the health facility, and then making Nigerians have food on the table. That is the only thing that will make Nigerians to be very happy, and the government will continue to be without problems. In as much as there are issues of this magnitude challenging these fundamental issues, there will be problem. Because if you look at Nigeria today, a lot of people are hungry. They go to bed, maybe somebody will just be pretending. After taking gari with, if he gets it with granite, he will just carry toothpick. From morning till evening, he will just be doing like this, pretending that he has eaten. But in the real sense of it, there's nothing, no food. So now, even the issue of economy, Mimuna, if you look at it, we've always been borrowing and borrowing. Now, the financial sector have been telling us that there's improvement. We've met our budget. The president has even stated that we've met our budget since this thing of oil, that we have a lot of monies and what have you. Why are we going to borrow? A borrowing is a sorrowing. Once you borrow, it becomes a sorrow. If it's not to you, but to the generations yet unborn. For God's sake, what legacies are we going to leave for the people that are unborn? For us, people like me in this my age, how many years do I have to live? I can't live the next 30, 40, or 50 years, except if God wills it. But these debts, what are we doing with them? If the debts were to be genuine, and it could be tied to projects, tied to food security, tied to prosperity of Nigeria, tied to the education sector, tied to the health, tied to some fundamental issues that has to do with fiscal infrastructure, Nigerians will not have any quarrel. But in the midst of plenty that we are saying, customs have met its own obligations, this thing, blue sea economy is producing, it is bringing out money. Why are we borrowing? Why are we borrowing? Now Nigeria is borrowing over 150 trillion. What and where are these resources plugged into to make Nigeria a happy place for people to habitate? Now, the government must look inwards. If there are problems associated with administration that could bring this kind of issue, where the military will even think of, having, even thinking, in the military cycle, even thinking of a coup is treason. And therefore, why should people plunge themselves if they know that the consequence of treason is maybe life imprisonment or death? So, to me, as a media, we have to be telling the government the truth. In a circumstance where the Nigerian media takes sides based on ethnicity, based on religion, based on friendship, based on maybe some sectarian issues, it is not going to be good for this country. We must be guided by reason. We must look at Nigeria from the perspective of our own country, a country that we should develop, make it habitable, and also leave a legacy of excellence to our generations unborn. Otherwise, these people, when they grow, voila, they will never forgive us.
You have been able to highlight, most of the challenges bedeviling Nigeria, cost of living, inflation, insecurity issues, and what have you. Today, I want to hear your view today as a veteran. If, the military decides to take over, do you think, it will bring a resolution to these issues that we're facing in Nigeria?
Let me tell you, you see, most military governments, they'll look at, if you close the door, they'll open a window. They'll look at opportunities. What is the pulse of the people? How are the people looking at these fundamental issues that we've raised? Why are Nigerians not happy? They will aggregate all these things, as we've seen during Abacha days and what have you, and once they say, fellow Nigerians, I bring you good tidings. You see, whether they will do better or not is something that is yet to be seen. Because to me, honestly, I have to also appreciate the Nigerian military. Because if you look at the Babangida era, going to Abacha era, most of these projects, most of Abuja was built by the military. They've done a lot in this country to make the country grow physically, and there was discipline. You cannot see people, looting small things. They will bring billions and billions. Nobody that time. But that is not to say that the military is better. Democracy is by far the worst. Democracy is better than the military because of what? As a journalist, you have your fundamental freedom. Under democracy, you can criticize, just like what is happening now under this current brouhaha that we have, where somebody is saying this coup. If it were during the military, the only thing, they'll just go and package you, lock up your office. So there's no clear-cut definition of freedom of the press. And people cannot even talk and criticize. That is one of the issues. But democracy, to me, it presupposes that this is a government of the people, for the people, and by the people. And the people matter. Whatever it is in a democratic setup, you have the freedom to talk. You have the freedom to interact. But we should be guided. If you look at democracy, Memuna, it presupposes that we should look at the yearning aspiration of Nigerians. Because all these problems, the government need to sit down and look inwards. By looking inwards, we're here as a government. We're here to make Nigerians happy. What do we do? All these issues of fuel subsidy, if I were the president, right from day one, I wouldn't have said subsidy must go. At that Eagle Square, I would have.
Ibrahim Modibbo, we have limited time.
Okay.
Thank you so much for speaking to us this morning.
Yeah.
Dr. Ibrahim Modibbo is a public affairs commentator, veteran journalist, first political editor at Daily Trust newspapers, co-founder of Newswatch magazine, and chairman of the Verbatim Media Group.
No, co-founder of the Road newspapers.
Newspaper.
I was an assistant editor in Newswatch.
Thank you so much for speaking with us.
Thank you.